Let's talk about which maps in Escape from Tarkov have the best loot in 2022. Let's jump right in. First, let's start with Factory. Unless you are the Legend 27 and can wipe Factory every time you play on it, it's probably not the best idea to loot there. However, if you can do that, all the power to you. Next, let's talk about Reserve. Reserve for me is a solid B tier. The recent dynamic loot changes and the introduction of Lighthouse, it seems like the map was nerfed pretty hard. A lot of the locked rooms on the map no longer have the decent spawns you're looking for, and the marked rooms are significantly worse than the one on customs. The marked room on Reserve can give you a few million rubles at best, whereas the one on customs, you're more likely to get 6, 7, 8 million out of it. On top of that, the Raider spawn chance was reduced and only slightly increased until recently. However, Raider farming on Reserve is not as reliable as it once was. As for the positives, the map contains a wide variety of valuable military technical loot, even if they can be a tad harder to find. Now let's talk about Labs. Labs is a solid A tier map with a few downsides keeping it from S tier. The obvious one is the cost to get in. You're essentially adding 160k to every loadout you decide to bring there. Also, because of how good Labs is for PvP, being one of the maps with the highest frame rates, most people are running tier 5 and 6 armors and meta ammo, so the average cost to enter the map is going up. Like Reserve, Labs is also hit with a Raider nerf. Sometimes you can go an entire round of Labs without a Raider spawning in. This caused a lot of lab mates to switch over to other maps since playing the map is just not as enjoyable as it once was. Dynamic loot change also killed Blue and Red Room. Good loot can spawn there, but for a keycard that's valued at 50 million rubles, the spawn rates are abysmal. However, the map still has amazing loot spawns like your LEDX, your streamer items, the colored labs keycards, which are great, and your other rare valuables like your Bitcoin, Lion, gold chains, etc. Next, let's talk about customs. That is going to sit promptly in B tier. Before customs received the expansion, the map would land a solid spot in C tier. However, the expansion brought a ton of new juicy item spawns to even the existing areas of the map. Customs is the only map that has the giving tree mechanic of being able to spawn any item in the game, which means just by checking the tree, you can walk away with 50 million rubles if you find the right keycard. The table in Old Gas can almost do the same thing with the exception of the keycard spawns. There's a bunch of valuable tech, ration, luxury spawns, even good key spawns give you plenty of areas to loot. The 23 stashes are great to loot when hopping from one location to the other. The big reason that drops this map from an A tier to a B is the storage side of the map. There's only one shelf that can sometimes spawn a Tetris and a car with tech loot in the trunk, but other than that, there's almost no reason at all to go there. I'm honestly surprised BSG did not put a single stash on that side of the map. I feel like the storage area would have been a great spot for them. If this side of the map gets reworked, then you'll definitely see this map in the higher tier in the future. Now, let's move on to Woods, which will solidly sit in S tier. Now, this may surprise some of you, and if it does, good, because you have to know about the loot on this map. I've had raids on Woods where I've walked out with over 5 sugars, multiple bitcoins, and moonshine. Woods has so much loot, whether you are looking at the sawmill, the USEC camps, the scav town, the abandoned village, everywhere. Every location on Woods is packed to the brim with loot, and the best part, you don't need a single key for any of the high value spawns. How can it get any better? Well, I'll tell you, there's also 33 stashes on the map. There's enough loot on the map for every player to loot it, and there would still be loot left over. It's also one of the only maps outside of Labs with a colored keycard spawn, the other being Shoreline. Speaking of Shoreline, this map sits solidly in A tier, and I'll tell you why. The resort is one of the craziest PvP areas in all of Escape from Tarkov. When going there, you either run into pistol players or the Suicide Squad. There's no in between. Sanitar can also spawn there to give you a rough time, and even if you kill him, his loot is mostly trash. There's a reason why Sanitar is one of the most hated bosses in Tarkov right now. The dude is so high on stims, I'm surprised he doesn't shoot like a stormtrooper. Even though the resort has some of the most frequent and best spawns in the game, a majority of these rooms require keys, and especially at the start of the wipe, the keys can be kind of hard to obtain. The map also has 40 stashes, so it's amazing for stash runs. The only other thing I'd worry about on this map is extract camping. You don't run into it as much with the new extracts added like Path to Shoreline, but for some reason a lot of people like to sit in bushes on this map. Speaking of extract camping, let's talk about Interchange. Interchange deserves a solid spot in S tier without a doubt. The shelves of Ollie alone can give you millions of rubles, especially in the early wipe. All of the hideout items you can find there are triple the price because everyone is trying to get their hands on them. The tech stores have so many high value spawns. I once went on a 7 in a row streak of finding graphics cards, some of them with minutes left in raid. There's also like 30 computers on the map, all of which have chances for graphics cards. On top of that, there's stashes located all along the outside and many weapon crates located all throughout the parking lot area underneath the mall. The only negatives to this map is the terrible lighting and Killa. I actually love Killa as a concept, but combined with the terrible lighting and a lack of his own voice lines, he's just impossible to reliably fight because he can spawn anywhere and he's most likely in a dark static corner. If you do manage to kill him though, he also has the best tier 5 armor in the game and his loot is almost always good. Last but not least, we have Lighthouse, which will sit right beside Interchange and Woods as one of the best maps to loot in Escape from Tarkov in 2022. There are 20 stashes on the map, most of which go unlooted because of how new the map is. Almost every area on the map is densely packed with loot, and the rogue camp is a gold mine once you learn how to cheese the rogues. Cheese being the important word there. You don't fight the rogues, you cheese them. The map has the best intel spawns in the game and an abundance of military loot, being the only other map other than Reserve that spawns P filters and military corrugated hoses. You also have a great chance at finding a bunch of luxury item spawns like Bitcoins and Lions. The map even has a decent amount of stim spawns if you're struggling with the samples quest. I have guides on where you can find all these things, so check them out if you don't know where to find them. So there is my map loot tier list and Escape from Tarkov in 2022. I hope you learned something about the map you want to loot, and I'll see you in the next one. And remember, crocodiles only wear sneakers in refrigerators.